Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Tuesday, April 17th now, and as I'm sure plenty of the people that are here at the beginning of the stream know, we are starting a new project today. So welcome, everybody. I'm going to take a few minutes, give a quick intro, just because I know there are going to be people joining as they get the notifications, so I don't want to dive in immediately. Otherwise, people will miss stuff. So, let's see. So I will go ahead and start with hello to Echo Strike, Jasper Panda, Arid Tag, Async Awake, Dylan, Janiscu, and Coated Beard. Thank you all. Welcome, welcome. I see all of you in chat. I think we got our auto host from the C# Fritz channel already, so welcome anybody that is wandering over from there. We are going to go ahead and get started here. A couple of things I wanted to mention. So we are, here at GameTracker, working on some open source projects that everyone has access to, including the bot that is in chat right now. So if you are in here, you probably noticed the bot said hello world to everybody when it joined the channel. And yep, as you can see, Async Awake is calling the bot, and it is responding with things. So you can use that to play games and anything. I'm going to keep it running while we're on the stream. As long as it doesn't crash, we're going to keep it there. As I said, it is under development. That is a totally unstable branch of it that we're running there, but that's fine. Welcome, Krishna. Welcome, everybody. So I actually just recently merged in a pull request, and things should be working pretty well with the bot. So what I wanted to mention is that everything we work on here on the stream is available and accessible to all of you. It is out on GitHub at github.com/devchatter, so including the project we're about to start. I have cloned a repository that's out there already. The repository that we're going to be working in with everything we do today is this GameTracker repository. You'll notice it is completely empty. We are really starting from scratch, so when I say that we're going to do this project from scratch, I mean from scratch. I set up the repo without you, and that's about it. So what I mentioned is the project is going to be ASP.NET Core. We're likely going to try to use ASP.NET Core and Vue.js. We're going to see how well we can build an application with that. I am someone that uses ASP.NET Core in some of my projects. I haven't used Vue.js yet, but it looks interesting, and that's part of the reason why I want to try it. So that is our goal. The application name you probably notice here is called GameTracker, and I don't have anything in the README or anything like that yet. We are just starting this, and the GameTracker is basically going to be a program where you're going to be able to keep track of the games that you and your friends play. So if you play a board game and then you want to record who won, who lost, what the game was that you guys played, maybe who taught the game to everybody else, because you might want to see well, yeah, I mean, Joe wins all the time, but, the only reason he wins is because he's the one that teaches all the new games. And then as soon as we play it the second time, Joe doesn't win anymore. And, you'd have that in your stats. So you can do any kind of weird thing that you want to do. And so, it'll let us look up data later. So we're going to add in reports and analytics and other things, but for now we're going to focus on initial data entry. We're going to look at starting up an ASP.NET Core app. And I think that's probably enough intro to get people coming in here. Obviously, we're going to have people ask what we're working on, and we'll go ahead and tell them as we go. No, Dylan. I mean, it would not exactly stalking people. It would be keeping track of things with you and your friends, and so you guys all played the game together, so you know who played the game. It's more like logging what happened. That way, down the road, when someone says they win most of the games, you can be like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Okay, so here's how we're going to get started. I am going to go ahead and jump in. We're going to file new project. We want to be in .NET Core, so we are going to choose .NET Core, and then I'm going to say, what is it? We want it to be in the dev chatter folder. and then inside of the on-stream folder. And then I think this one's called GameTracker for the folder that we want to open up. Should be... I'm just going to go ahead and copy that, just to make sure I get it in the right place. Alright, good. We don't want to call this web application. And actually, before I start, I'm going to show you a trick that I like to do. So I like to start off by creating my Visual Studio solution and then adding projects to it. Now, the reason I like to do this is because I like to control where the elements are, and this just goes to my personal preference on where I like them to be. The other weird thing that I do is, because there's always a directory created for solution, I actually call my solution src initially, and I'll show you what this is going to do. So, when I create this new src solution, that's totally fine. Once it creates it that way, I'm going to call it GameTracker now. So I renamed it, but what it did behind the scenes was it created a folder for that. So, if I actually take a look now inside of this, you'll see that it put it in source/GameTracker. So it actually created now a source folder for me. And I like to have a source folder for the project in there. That way, if I have a folder full of either documentation files or files related to the build or anything like that, I can have a separate folder for those at the top level. So I keep my source inside of a source folder. That's just how I organize things. But I'm able to sort of take advantage of some of the power of Visual Studio right there. And now, in order to make sure that it's not confused about things, I'm going to get that removed from the list, and I'm going to reopen that project. I wonder if I can just drag this in here. Alright, I'm just going to drag the solution in there and load it. So now it's going to have the right one. So, yeah, so, welcome, thank you for following. That's just the way that I set things up. It works pretty well. You mentioned that it will be open source. It sounds like an interesting topic. Captain Honeydew, it will be an interesting one, and you are welcome to add to the project. Actually, everyone here is. In fact, you don't even have to be here. Pretty much anybody on the internet is allowed to send in pull requests. We get a decent number of pull requests actually on our bot program. Do we want to put dev chatter at the beginning? I think we're going to call it the dev chatter GameTracker, which is kind of a long name, but I'm going to do it. And since it's just the core, this is the running part of the application, I'm not going to put a suffix like web on it. So now here's the part that gets weird in ASP.NET Core. When you create these projects, it has us defaulted to using core and not able to select full framework. Now, we're not going to select full framework, but I just wanted to point out that it's weird that we don't get that option anymore. So we're going to choose ASP.NET Core 2.0 because we're not going to run with the preview of 2.1, but when 2.1 comes out, we will upgrade to it. The next thing that we want to do, if you don't want to do your initial setup of EF Core right at the beginning, I highly recommend that you turn on authentication, especially if you think you're going to have it eventually anyway. So I'm going to do individual user accounts and say store accounts in the app, and that's going to actually go ahead and do an initial migration for us in EF Core and set everything up for us. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Once this gets going here, the couple of things that it's set up that we're going to take a look at that I like here, it sets up a couple of things. First off, we have some pages related to the account that are right here, and you'll see that we have login controller, we have login with two-factor auth, and a couple of other things. We got forgot password pages. And so it sets up all these pages for doing all the account stuff because we checked that, we said change authentication and include it. The couple of other things that it did for us, because we did that, you'll notice that we got an email sender And we also got these controllers. So one thing that I wanted to point out that I want to make sure that everybody knows about ASP.NET Core and using Razor Pages. So we're using Razor Pages. So if you take a look at these, you'll see that I have some Razor in my CSHTML, and there's effectively, so there's a page model that lines up with our, this page model lines up directly with the CSHTML, and you'll notice it is a, about.cshtml.cs file, so it is a C# file, and it's a one-to-one connection that these make. Now don't think of this like a code behind, because it's not like that. There's no eventing, there's no state, it's not hiding how the web works. But what's interesting about this is, and this goes for most stuff with MVC and modern ASP.NET, is we didn't lose the ability to have controllers. And that's what I want to point out here, is that we have the account controller still. So the account controller then has this concept of logout. And the reason that's on a controller is that logout is a feature that we're going to want everywhere, regardless of what page you're on. That's just a concept that we might want to log out. And so that's why that's on a controller. Also, Ugalosh, I apologize for butchering your name. I gave it a shot. Let me know and I will pronounce it better next time, but thank you for following. Welcome to Dev Chatter, everyone. So that's the point that I wanted to make there. So that stuff's cool. It set up our authentication for us, but the real reason that I wanted to do that, yeah, welcome, Developer Desmond. Hooray for MVC. It's quite nice. So the nice part is all the stuff that you were doing before, whether if you had API controllers or anything like that you were doing before, you can do all that same stuff inside of ASP.NET Core using Razor Pages. You still get controllers, so you didn't give up any of that because you used the new stuff. And that's what's so nice. So the real reason we did that is that it set up our initial EF Core migration for us. So if we take a look at this, you'll see that I have an application DB context already. Inside this application DB context, you'll see that it already created, various default stuff that I would need. And then if we take a look over here, the create migration that it did here is it did a create identity schema. And so this set up my ASP.NET roles, tokens, users. So it basically went and set up all of the various tables that I would need in order to do authentication in ASP.NET Core. And so that's what's nice that it did for me, is it set that up. So it already did all these pieces. Now, the one thing that bothers me about this is it put it inside of data. So we're going to get that out of there eventually, but for now we want to have this initial website set up, and I'm going to go ahead and run it. Yeah, Dylan, I agree. That is some messy code. And even the organization inside the project's kind of messy. And the reason is that they wanted to throw everything all together, so it was really easy to get started with. We're gonna break some of that apart. We're gonna separate it out and make it a little nicer. Okay, so confirmed. The website loads. You'll notice it starts off as an HTTPS website, which I also am a big fan of. The fact that that's now the default. One thing I find hilarious is it copyright 2017's on here for I don't know why. They didn't do that based on date time or something. But they didn't. It's hard-coded, because good job, guys. Okay, so we have that. I believe I set this up with a standard Visual Studio ignore file. So the first thing we want to do, we created a new project and a solution. So we want to get this checked in. So I am actually just going to do an initial ASP.NET Core project check-in. Whoops, I can't type today. Okay, I am not going to commit this to master. I am going to do initial setup. So we're going to create a new branch, initial setup. Despite the fact that, we could just send it into master, there's nothing else in there. So So Captain Honeydew, the Git UI that we're using here is GitHub Desktop, and the reason I do this is because this lets me have a... so I use GitHub Desktop because it gives a nice visual for people on the stream, so I like that it... is something that people can look at and see and understand it. I do most of my own work from the command line, but that I think is probably going a little bit too far in the stream because you get a lot of people that don't know Git that well. The other nice thing is it lets me have this GUI application exclusive to DevChatter projects. So everything in here is a DevChatter project that we either reference or use on stream. So that makes that a little nicer. You're just starting out to program, and what would be the language to learn first? Caesarian TV, the suggestion I would give you is to choose a language that you like, and also figure out what you want to do with it. So C# is a good language. That's the one we use here, as Async Awake was suggesting. But what I would say is you want to find out what type of coding you want to do. So if you want to do business applications, for example, C# is a very good language for that. If you want to write games, you could look into Unity and see how well that works, and that might be the answer for you. But a lot of that's going to vary based on what you want to do. Okay, so I'm going to set up our next project here, and the reason I'm going to immediately set up our next project is I want to get us set up with a model, and I don't want to put that in our web project. I want to separate that out and have a core project for it. Let me see, local DB, ASP.NET Game, GameTracker. I'm okay with that local DB name, and I just wanted to look at where it put it. So that means that we should have, I'm going to go ahead and pull this open right now. So what it did behind the scenes in EF Core was it created our database for us, or it should have. Ooh, maybe it didn't yet. It didn't yet. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and run that. Let's check the site. Can I register a user account? What do I need to do to install to code along? Developer Desmond, if you want to code along with us, you will want to make sure that you have all the latest Visual Studios and .NET Core 2.0 installed. Since you have to say that GitHub spiel like 2+ times a stream, it would be better to make a quote. Echo Strike, that is a very good point. It should probably be a quote. C# is becoming less Windows-focused, Dylan, but you're right. If you're going to program for something that's not Windows, you want to look away from C# until there's a better answer for that. And if you want to do web development, then C# is a reasonably good answer. Web development could mean back-end or front-end, but C# is going to be the back-end code, and you're going to want to learn JavaScript to do the front-end code. So let's go ahead and set up my email, which is going to be this is not my email at mailinator.com. And my password is, I wonder if there are restrictions on here. Anybody remember if there are default password things? Oh, okay, cool. Passwords must have at least one digit and one uppercase. So password with a P, password 1, password 1. Totally secure, guys. No one's going to figure that out. What? Non-alphanumeric. Password 1, exclamation point. Password 1, exclamation point. Yes. This is super secure. Okay, so here's what we got. This is what I suspected might happen because we didn't find the database. And I wanted to show you guys this. So what we got was this really awesome error page that it gives us, which is it can't open my database. And then what it says is, it says that we need to apply the migrations. Now what's cool is I can click this here, or I can, inside the package manager, which to mention what that is, I just come down here and I go to NuGet Package Manager Console. And this is what gets this to load. Hang on one second, guys. This is Cat. He says hi. His name is Jolie. He is very sweet and he wants to climb on me right now. So say hello to all the people. Hi, everybody. Alright, I'm going to kick the cat out of the room. Smart ASCII, you are correct. That is Jolie Bindo. Well done. Smart ASCII wins a prize, everyone. Yep. That is the pet. So, okay. Hang on one second, everybody. I need to give Smart ASCII a prize. There we go. Congratulations, Smart ASCII. Well done. You figured out the last name? Middle name, maybe? I don't know. Yep, the cat's full name is Jolie Bindo. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what we get is that is now the way that we are able to set this up. So I'm going to go ahead and do an update database because I like doing it right here inside the Package Manager console, but I believe that I can click that button and it'll work too. We'll see if this works. It says done. Alright, we're going to try it again. So, I'm going to resend that same, and we'll see what happens. Alright, so it created my account, so the database exists and it's all set up. So if I come over here and refresh, we should now see ASP.NET Dev Chatter GameTracker right here. So that database got created. Okay, cool. I'm going to check and just make sure nothing changed. It didn't. And what we're going to do now is I want to set up our core project. So I'm going to set up a net standard class library. And you might say, why are you using net standard? Well, the reason why is if at some point I need to create some aspect of this that works with the full framework, I might want to use it. And so I could reuse the same library in either place if I use net standard instead of using net core. So that's the idea there. Oh, and if you like any of the emotes, the DevChaHype emotes that you see in chat, those are usable by any of the subscribers of the channel. So GameTracker.core. Okay, so I'm going to follow that naming convention. Make a core library. Now the reason why I'm doing this is I want to make a model folder here. Why is that not giving? There we go. And I'm going to move this in here. So inside of core model, I want to create the classes that are going to be essentially the data that we're using inside of our program. Yeah, so Echo Strike there is able to use one of the emotes. Sadly, Twitch restricts it, and I can only make one emote for Tier 1 subs. If we do manage to hit partner status at some point, I will open that up so that we have more emotes. Okay, so the first model object that I want to make is a game. So I'm just going to call this thing game. For now, I'm just going to make it a property. I'm going to make it have properties of a title, and I kind of want to have a base entity that we're going to use, and all the base entities are going to have an ID. Call me old-fashioned, but I like having a GUID on my objects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make base entity, and my base entity, I'm going to make it an abstract base class. base entity, and it is going to have a GUID ID, and through convention, EF Core is actually going to figure out that that's an ID and handle it correctly. So now I have my game as a base entity. It has a title on it, and one thing that is important to remember about EF Core is it wants to have default constructors for everything, which it's going to have one by default as long as I don't define another constructor. But EF Core is really finicky about this because it uses the default constructor to make the object that it's going to use. So when it hydrates this and it pulls it out of the database, it's going to look for one of these. So I'm going to include this by default, even though we're not using it, as a reminder for myself to make sure I keep it. You're giving it an ID so it can fit into a database. Developer Desmond, yes, that is a database ID that I want to have, so that I can use a GUID as a foreign key. Although alternately, if someone wanted to make a case for it, I could make this an int ID if we wanted to, and it would work exactly the same way. It's just then I would be limited, and there's some advantage to working with an ID, so I'll switch it to an int. To be honest, if we ever exceed an int, then, you know, I'll be really impressed on game, or even, you know, game played or something like that. But I'll leave it as a GUID. Because, you know, dreams, man. Maybe it'll get so much traffic that we're going to need that to be a GUID. And no, it doesn't need to have an ID, but I like it to have an ID when it goes into the database. There's nothing about a database that requires that its primary key be a GUID or an ID or anything. I just like to do that. Okay, so now in order to make this, are you going to use annotations? So, Brutal, I like to use the Fluent API rather than the annotations because of the fact that so I should clarify. Annotations for certain things, like restrictions on the model, but not annotations for things like how it's stored in a database. And the reason I don't like to do that is, and there are pros and cons, is I like to be able to have my model entirely separate from the idea of storage. So I don't want this model to know how it's stored. Knowing that it has an ID, I've even hidden that away a little bit because nothing's really going to reference by ID. So that's part of why it's on the base entity, is the game object itself doesn't really worry about that kind of thing. So that's part of the idea there. So I'm going to jump over to our data context, and I am going to add a DB set on this. And I'm going to add a DB set for our game. Now, I need to add a reference, so I love this feature that these tools get me here, which is it's going to actually make a project reference from this project to the core project and add the using statement at the top for me when I do that. So you'll notice it added this using up here, but then it also added in a project dependency right here connecting to that library. So I'm going to call this games. Is that what public DB set games. Let's see. Are there pros and cons? Okay, answer that. I was like, wow, someone deving on Twitch, and then I noticed the .NET and C# part. Oh, you don't like .NET and C#? I like .NET and C#. It's good stuff. Okay. Yeah, no problem. I glad to clarify when I can. Okay, so just to make sure that everything's still working right, we didn't do anything wonky, I am going to go ahead and open that up, and project still work. Yep, nothing weird. Okay, so that's good. Things still doing what they should be doing. Excuse me. Okay. Almost forgot that's a property. Okay. So I have a property, games, that we have set up here. Whoops, that doesn't need that. And this is what's going to let me access these. So the way that we're going to do this is when I... so I'm going to commit this first. But then I am going to add a new migration using EF Core, and that should get me a table for this. We'll see what it does with it. So, adding core project with model, with game model. Adding core library with game model. Okay, there we go. Actually, I'm going to click the publish button because I am not worried about publishing it. Okay. It's just a meme to hate it if you're using... Oh, yeah, well... Gaylord, I mean, it's pretty much within the development community to hate every single technology that you don't personally develop with. I think that's just kind of how it works. Okay, so now that we've got that committed, we want to add a new migration. So you'll remember that I opened up the Package Manager console the last time I was doing a migration. I'm going to do the same thing. Now, when we did it before, it popped up a message and told us which one to do, but I'm going to show you guys the documentation. Basically, all we're going to do is it's going to be add migration, but I'm going to show you this so you know where to look when you're looking this up. So we're going to go to docs.microsoft.com, and we want to look for, well, EF Core docs. We're going to pull up the EF Core docs, which, Entity Framework Core, it's going to show you how to do a migration when you migrations. So as I said, it's basically just add migration and what you want to name it. So what we're going to do is this. So basically this is the location you want to go to that gives you all the instructions for this, and I'm going to show you the extra thing that we're going to have to do because we are going to put it in a separate folder in a moment, and then you'll see what that is. So this one is adding game. Well, actually, let's just do it this way: adding game model. Create game model. Create game model. All right. So in theory, that should do what we want it to do. We'll take a look at the migration that it creates, and we'll see what we get out of it. Okay. So. Create game model should have done some interesting things for us. We'll take a look at that. I want to see what everybody said in chat. Exactly, that's why we're thankful that it's not in Node. Hey, I've used Node before, it's not that bad. JavaScript you do hate even if you use it. I'm one of those crazy people that used JavaScript in the 90s. And let me tell you, it was crap back then. It's way better now. And Node is actually quite awesome for a lot of things. And it is getting better. So, welcome, Wheelspin, welcome. Okay, so this should have created this. I'm going to take a look at what it made for us. It's dropping indexes on things. That is hilarious. Are you telling me the initial migration wants to drop all these? Oh, and then creates new ones? Weird. So I guess the initial migration didn't set up exactly the way it expected to? I kind of want to... Alright guys, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run this again. So I'm going to discard these, because that's wonky. I can't believe it just made that. Yeah, so that didn't do exactly what I wanted it to do. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to comment out this. So essentially, I'm not going to let EF know that I want to add that new model in there, and I'm going to run the migration again. I should have renamed it, but I want to see what it puts in here. Yeah, it's dropping and fixing the indexes. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to fix this thing's name and get it right this time. So we're going to discard all these. I'm going to go back into this data model. I'm going to comment this out. And I'm going to add a new migration called let EF core change things. So apparently the default set didn't do a full migration, so I'm going to do that. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to add another migration. So I'm going to put this back in here. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to have these as separate files, so it's very clear what happened. And now I think my game model create should be a little separate. So let's take a look at the new one. So create this. Okay, good. Yeah, so it just one time wanted to make a modification to these tables. So what did it do? It dropped that, dropped that, dropped that, and then created new ones. Huh. I'm not sure why it adjusted those, but the default models must not match what it created as the initial schema in the database. So that's kind of weird. Wow, we have a war going on in chat. The way EF edits tables is dropping tips. It's the time when you need to handle the things that deadlocks and starts to appreciate it. Yeah. There are a number of things that are good in all languages. That's actually why when someone was asking what language they should learn earlier, I would say you want to figure out what you want to do with it first, and then that helps you figure out what language you want to be programming in. There isn't just a do this programming language, it's the best. Each one is good at certain things. So this will be adding my migrations for, yeah, I'm just going to say adding migrations. Commit that one. Dylan, EF is Entity Framework. So Entity Framework Core is the object relational mapper that we're using to connect to our database. Yep. What everybody said. Yep, exactly. So that's all it is. Okay, so now I have a model object. So I've got a model object. It stores in the database, and I can make some other changes for it. We are starting a new project, Floodgris. I apologize for butchering your name there, but this is an ASP.NET game tracking application that we just started. And the next thing that I want to do, I'm initially going to put our page just right in here to get us started with this thing, and then we'll figure out a better place for it later. So for now, I'm going to see what it does when I just tell it that I want to use Razor Page using Entity Framework and tell it I want to do a CRUD operation on my model object. We're all committed, so we can see what this is going to set up. Yeah, Dylan, basically EF is a mapper of your database. And the data context class we want to use is that one. Reference script libraries, use a layout page, yep. Add Razor, which is the following files already. Oh, no. Oops, no. I'm going to make a folder first. We're going to call this games. And then in here, I'm going to do the thing that I was just trying to do. So we're going to make a Razor page. We're going to tell it we want to do a CRUD. And now this isn't going to set it up perfectly because this is going to use the data context. And we don't actually want to use the data context here. We're going to put an abstraction layer in there. But I'm setting this up because it'll make all the default pieces for us. And then we can remove the data context object that we don't want to have in here. So I'm going to click those. It's going to go ahead and create a set of files for us. And we're going to see what it made. If it made the right ones, we're going to get this set up and we're going to get it working. Just so you're aware, the next step that we're going to take after we get the initial game creation page set up is I'm going to want to extract out our data layer and get that to another location, because I don't want to have our data inside of our web project. I want to pull that out so it's a separate piece, because as was asked by Dylan, what is EF? Well, it's the ORM that we happen to be using. And I know a lot of people that don't like EF for one reason or another, and I want to make it easy if down the road someone wants to switch us to something that works better than EF. maybe we run into performance issues or something like that, we want to be able to switch easily. So, what it did here was it should have created a set of files. It did. Very nice set of files, too. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to go to the... I don't want to be on the index page. I want to be on the layout page. Brendan, open the right file, please. So on the layout, I want to create, on the top level, I'm going to make a link to our game pages. So I'm just going to make a new top bar spot, and I'm going to call it Games Index. And so I actually do have to specify index here. So what this is, I made an anchor tag. This is called a... brain, work for a second. This is a... helper? Yes, Dylan. The default HTML that we get here is kind of bleh, but at the same time, it's really not that bad. My brain won't give me the word. Tag helper, thank you, Coated Beard. My brain would not give me that word. Yes, tag helper. So the idea is that this is actually run... this is... ASP.NET Core is actually going to come through, and we're going to use the C# compiler, and we're going to... so we're going to use Roslyn. It's actually going to take all this, and it's going to make this actually be a link to that page for us at runtime. So I actually really like that. And Captain Honeydew is correct. The reason why it is structured this way is to make it easy for beginners, which means that everything's just kind of loaded all together instead of being broken apart, which is why one of the first things that we do when we step into this is we start setting things up and then we start breaking things apart into the structure that we like better. So that's part of the reason why we get these extra steps that we have to do. It would be nice if they had a template version for this that was basically like, I already know how to use these things, just set up the project for me the right way. And you can make your own templates, so that actually would be an answer if you wanted to do that. So now that we've got those, I am going to go ahead and close all of these. We're going to reopen those in a second, but I want to run the application. That could be Captain Honeydew. They might expect us to actually make our own templates. Let's go ahead and see if we can navigate to the page. Okay. Oh, I didn't apply my migrations. So I added those migrations, but I didn't apply them. So you'll see what it's suggesting we do is do an update database. And the cool part is that it immediately figures out that we didn't do that and tells us, which I love how much better error messages have gotten in all the .NET Core stuff. So everything .NET has gotten way friendlier and easier to use. Yes, exactly. I can understand not wanting to force a structure, and I can also understand wanting to avoid beginners picking them. You could probably hide them away a little bit. Okay, so we can get to that page now. I am going to go ahead and do an initial commit of these as well. So you'll notice all these pages, for each one we have a CSHTML and a CSHTML CS file. So it actually created for every single one of these a back-end page. So I'm pointing this out because of how quickly we scaffold these up, but then even once it's scaffolded, it doesn't take as much effort to fix it. And for anyone that's wondering, yes, Dylan, everyone misses seg faults and other things like that. It's bad enough that we still have null reference exceptions that don't tell us what object was null. But anyway, yeah, so these new projects are quite nice. So what I want to set up here is I just want to say adding in the games scaffold. Yeah, scaffold, I can type, pages. So that is our scaffolded pages for game, and I call it scaffold because it just kind of set them up for us in that structure, and it works pretty well. Anybody that wants to hop in the rock, paper, scissors game in chat, just go ahead and type in !RPS, and you can choose rock, paper, or scissors, or don't choose anything, and it will give you one randomly. And that is actually the bot that we're normally developing in this channel. That's our main project, is working on the dev chatter chatbot. And it's quite fun. So that bot that is doing stuff on stream is all developed here in C# and .NET Core, and I just have a branch of it that I'm working on locally, and that's all that's running right there. So if we notice bugs, keep in mind that's not a stable copy of this. That is, active development. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and open up the project here. So we want to make a new game, and our first game in here is going to be my favorite board game, which is D-Mocker. It is a German board game. The next game I'm going to add in here is Pandemic. And then I'm going to add in Pandemic Legacy. Pandemic Legacy. There we go. Okay, so you can see we've already got this, and I'm going to go ahead and do a Control F5 and show you that that page really is there. And then I'm also going to open up the database and show you guys that, whoops, if I don't mess up what I'm doing, inside of here, you'll see that we have tables for all of our authentication stuff. This is a table keeping track of our migrations. And then down here is our games. And if I take a look at the data in this, you'll see that it added those rows for that. So we did basically nothing and just kind of selected defaults, and we already have an application that does our data entry. Yeah, Echo Strike, I will just take a guess on what questions you'll ask, and I'll answer them just to make it easy. Okay, so that looks like that works. And just to confirm, let's go ahead and do this as well. I am going to make a game called Clue, right? Oh, wait, that's not how you spell Clue. I meant to say Clue. There we go. So, all these different features work. And the Great Museum Caper. Okay, so looks like all that's working, and I can delete it, I think. Okay, great. So that looks like it works nicely. Let's fix up these pages. I don't like it being called this, so we're going to say board game list instead of index. Board game inventory list? Yeah, list. And then this, I actually want this to be the view data title. Well, you know what I should do? So I should just make that part of the model. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to jump over to the model. We could put it right on here. Alright, we'll get that in a minute. Because there's something else I want to do first. So we're going to get that right. So here's what's going on that's weird. So the idea, there's different situations for both of them, Honeydew. For something that's like that, I could see going either way. I could hard-code it at the top. I could have just used a variable and just put it right up here as like, string page title equals this, right? And then just use page title in these places. And then that is totally fine. And then I could use it down here also, right? And I can get away with that, and it's just fine. And there's no reason not to do it like this if I wanted to. But I can also put it on the model, and it does basically the same thing. So I could say page title, put it there, and then just set it equal to, whoops, set it equal to this, and I can do this, and it works the same way no matter how I set it up. So now, back on this page, I could say, model dot page title, and then that works also, right? Now, I tend to like throwing things on the model for stuff like this because it's nice, it's clean, it's out of here, it's pretty easy to set. But I would say that comes up to personal preference on one of these. What I will say is So I set this up talking to the model objects, which is very convenient and works well for this type of object. But when you get into certain types of data that you're using, you want to be restrictive, because a lot of times what you'll end up with is you'll have a model object that has a lot more complexity than what you're going to show on the page. And I recommend in those situations that you use a view model still. And the reason I suggest that is that a view model will restrict what the user can actually send you. So that makes sure that someone doesn't send you something that they wouldn't normally be allowed to. Because you don't want someone, for example, to change the state of an object when they're editing something if they didn't have permission to do that. And so using a view model object works nice for that. So inside of your page model object might be a view model object. In our case, our game titles are just a string right now, so it's not complex enough for me to want to actually create a view model for it. But we might do that with something else later. We'll see. Arid tag, no, this could be any game. So this could be pen and paper. I'm just calling it a board game for now, but you're right, this could be. So we're just going to call it a game list. So it does not need to be a board game. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and change it to that, and then that should update all the values. And actually, let's see what it does when I do this. Game list. There we go. So the nice part is, you may have noticed, there's no output window. I did not compile this. So, and it automatically updated over here to the new change. So that's what's really neat, is that it does a lot of that compilation behind the scenes without you having to do any extra work. Oh man, like everybody won except, you know, like me and some other people. That sucks. The rock, paper, scissors game, I mean. Also, I'll trigger another Hangman game so you guys can play Hangman. Okay, so that sets those up. Now, the next thing that I want to do is I want to stop using our data context object inside of the back end of these. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to make a new folder called data. Inside of data, I am going to make an interface. I'm going to call it iRepository. Now, I know a lot of people have bad opinions of the repository pattern. Some people have good opinions. It's very divisive, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. And actually, what I'm going to do, you guys are going to laugh, I'm going to pull up our other project, and I'm actually going to go just steal the one out of it, because I think it works pretty well. We're using it effectively over in the bot, so why not use it effectively here as well? And I'm not going to take the whole thing, because we don't need everything that the bot's using just yet. And chat's probably exploding right now. Oh man, he's using a repository. This is insane. Why is he doing that? Okay. Import missing reference file. And we didn't call ours a data entity. We called it a base entity, I think. Which is weird that I didn't keep the same naming convention, but that's fine. Okay. And let me see, is chat actually blowing up? Let's see. That's not the word. That should have been, it should have been the word. Yes, that is exactly the idea of what you'd be doing. If you picked a word that was some kind of ASCII art, then I would understand your friends being upset with you. Also, welcome. Thank you for following. It's about to make noise in the chat when we get that notification. So I'm going to make a new folder called Specifications. Specifications. There it is. Silver, welcome. Thank you for following. Is that 3 underscores, it looks like? So Silver with 3 underscores. Welcome, welcome. Hopefully you are having a good day. Feel free to play Hangman with everybody else. And what we are going to do here is I am going to add a couple of things. First off, our specification is going to be a specification of t, and we are going to take in an expression of function of t of bool called criteria, and someone's eyes are going to bleed right there because I just did that. And yes, there is a darn good reason why I structured it that way, and it really does have to be. So the idea is that we want this to be a lambda expression. We want that lambda expression to represent a function. We want that function to return back to accept a t, and we want it to return back a Boolean. So that's why it is that structure. And Floodgris, you've been here for a while and you just followed. Thank you very much. Hope that means that you've been enjoying this. And Brutal Sweet, congratulations. What was the word? Oh, he added that. It was banana. Yeah, so you can complete the word by just putting in all the letters, or by doing that. And yeah, Brutal Suede. Yeah. It's really not that bad, I promise. Okay, so over here we're going to import that, and then that should work just fine. Okay, so our repository now works-ish. And by works, I mean doesn't do anything because it's just an interface, but don't worry about that part just yet. What I am now going to do is I am going to make a default one of these. So I want to have a base policy that we're going to use that is one of these specifications. So I'm going to create a derived type, and I'm going to call this a base item, base entity policy. It is of type T. It is an I specification of T. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that this is public, and I am not going to put in a restriction that this is abstract. So we're going to say where T is one of our base entities. So this will work on any one of our base entities. And then I'm going to implement the missing piece, which is this. And then I am going to put a constructor on here that says that it needs one of these, and we're going to call that criteria. We're going to set that auto property, and if any of this is confusing, don't worry. It will all become clear once we use it. Just let this part happen, and I promise it'll make more sense once we get there. Yes, exactly. Sorry, Brutal Suede. You'll be alright. You'll be alright. Don't worry. Just give it time. Just give it time. Okay, so basically the idea here is we can call this, pass in those values. I'm going to make a couple of statics for this. So I'm going to do a static version of this. It's going to return back a base entity policy of type T. We're going to call this one all, and then what we're going to do in this one is we're going to say return new policy, and we're going to say true. So that means that we're going to accept every single one, and then I'm going to make one more static helper in here. We're going to call this one by ID. And this one, we're going to take in a GUID ID, and we're going to say x dot ID equals ID. So essentially the idea is that we're going to have a policy that tells us how to select all and then how to select by ID. Okay. That's all we need for that specification. Whoops, that needs to be in its own file. Move to that file, please. Okay. So you'll understand the structure in a second once I show you how we're going to use it. And actually, do I want list? Create, update, remove, update. I think some of these, I think I can get rid of these for now. We're not doing the multi ones. We'll add them in later if we need them. We want to get a single by ID, a list, create, and update at T. So those ones taken as specifications, create, update, and remove do not. Okay. That looks good. I understand how all those work. Okay, so just let it. Okay, I recommend some documentation on a class like this for the viewer's sake. I don't know what a specification is or a base entity policy. Okay, cool. I will put on some documentation. A specification interface that used to encapsulate filtering logic for use by repositories. And this is, I don't think I need to specify what the T is. Okay, I think the hardest part to understand is the abstraction, having only done .NET for 10 months. Yeah, Brutal Suede, I'll make it clear in a second, just, I promise. And yes, Captain Honeydew is correct. This is used, we're going to use this for query building, and I'll show you what it is. And I promise you, developer Desmond, this is this abstraction is going to make more sense, and Captain Honeydew is correct. It is filtering, it is query building. And yes, it's not that bad. It just takes a second for it to click. It will once you see it in use. So I will show you how it works, and it'll be pretty nice. I just need to do a couple of things to make it work. So at this point, I'm going to commit these, and actually I'm going to commit these separately from this. Change index page title. I'm going to commit those two. Which that's another reason why I use a GUI on stream, is because it's easy to do that stuff, and your brain kind of forgets to do things like commit sometimes while you're streaming. So hence when I get back there and I'm like, oh, I didn't commit that. It's really easy to just do separate commits like that, which I know I could just, you know, stage only the 2 or 3 files I care about, stash the rest, blah blah blah, all kinds of fun stuff. But this works well enough. So this is adding repository and specification interfaces. Okay, so I haven't used them at all yet, but what I'm going to do next is I am going to set up a new project. Again, it's going to be a net standard project. This one's going to be my EF project. So far we've been able to get away with using EF, and it's been very nice. It's going to get a little bit less nice here. We're going to say infra and EF. I like doing... actually, instead of saying infra for this one, I'm going to call it data. GameTracker data EF. I think that's going to be good. Yeah, we're going to do that one. Okay. Yeah, so on the interface and the abstract classes, I will get some more documentation on that, and I will get it on the base entity policy. Don't worry about that one. I will get those for you. Okay, so this project needs to have a project reference to the core project, and then this project needs to have a reference to the EF project. Okay. So what we're going to put in this one is a class, and I'm going to call it an EF core repository. And what we're going to put inside the EF core repository is essentially we're going to have it implement the iRepository interface. Now, the reason we're doing this structure with this interface and everything, we'll get to eventually. So this is going to be a generic repository that's going to get us access to all the pieces we need. I mentioned that we're going to use EF Core for it, and the way that we're going to do that is that we're going to accept our application data... Whoops. I can't use it yet. Sorry guys, hang on. There's one extra step I have to do before this is going to work. So we're going to leave this with the throw new.implemented exceptions, but this is going to be the EF core repository that we're actually going to use. So now, this is actually what we want inside of our controllers. Which, I'll make it work. We need to avoid a circular reference here. So in order to avoid it, what I'm going to have to do is this. So hang on, let me make sure I save and build everything, because I'm afraid something doesn't have its reference. There we go. Because I should have had 2 CS Proj files in there modified. So I think this modification didn't make it in at first. Okay, so adding EF core project. Okay, so here's what we're going to do to make this happen, everybody. I now need to lose the great benefit that we had a moment ago by moving my classes from here. I'm actually going to pull them from there over into the EF project. So I no longer have this data folder, and I shifted these over into another project. So all the entity framework classes that we had that were inside of data are now moved over here. That means application user, and ASP core identity. Actually, was this getting used over here? This one might actually be able to live back over there. I think this one might stay over here, so we're going to put that one back inside of the data folder. I think application user, that's specific to the application, so we're going to put it back here. That's part of the web project, I think, for now. So we're going to put that one back. But the DB context and the migration should be here. So let's get that shifted over there. And now I need to make these work. Oh, application DB context. No, never mind. I can't get away with it, and it has to come live over here. Alright, application user. You get to have fun. You're shifting over here now. You can't live over here. Alright, I forgot about that. It does have to move. We want to reference Entity Framework Core and do that, but I want to find it on NuGet and reference it. So, Entity Framework Core, that's the one. So I'm going to add that dependency to the project. So now that suddenly should start working. Now I want to add this to the project as well. So I'm going to add this as another NuGet package reference. So we're going to browse for this, and then we're going to search for this project. There it is. We're going to go ahead and install that as well. So the reason we have to bring these in here is we need this project to know about EF Core and the identity stuff that ASP.NET Core uses. Yes, Wampa TV, what Brutal Suede said is correct. Why didn't it bring this in? There we go. Okay. Okay, so there must be a problem at application user still, and that's why it doesn't think that's there. Okay, this must be one of the. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna open up these two pieces. So we're moving data. We're moving our objects from one project to the other, and what that means is that we are not getting all of the references that we need. So I'm gonna cheat for a second. I'm gonna toss that sucker in there, which is gonna get like everything. I happen to know that we're going to need these tools and that design in here as well. So that's going to get in there. And then we will also want to have, so we have user secrets already set up, which is one of the cool things, is they put that in by default if you're a web project, which kind of annoys me that they don't do that for the other ones. We don't have these, but we will need the EF one, the secret manager, and the code generation. We don't need the secret manager, actually, so... But I'm going to copy them over here and remove them. And if any of this is weird, The new project file, you'll notice, is trimmed down basically just to the references, and that's it. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do another... I'm actually going to do a clean and then a build. Okay. Oh, because I removed the one. So we're going to find it again. We're going to add it again. The project that I removed. We're going to install that again. I'm not sure why it's not getting included as part of all. I think that's the one we want. That should be the core one. And if this doesn't get any friendlier, I'm going to switch this thing to a core project. Because we're on Net Standard 2.0. The install failed? Oh, I didn't see it rolling back. Oh yeah, rolled back. Yeah, I just sort of failed. Yeah, good call. Alright. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to change this project. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this project. So here's the thing that I think that's getting us. I'm going to change this from Net Standard to Net Core. And yet, it is literally that easy to change that, which is nice. There you go. There was the problem. Did I call that, or did I call that there? Okay, so now if we take a look at this, it's kind of annoying that I had to do that, but hey, it worked. So I'm going to adjust our namespace. Yeah, I know, right? It is nice that those things are that easy. It's kind of annoying that we have to do it, but it's nice that it was that easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over to these. I'm going to fix these namespaces, because they need to be. And yeah, this is going to be slow, and holy cow, whoa! I don't know what that was. That was pretty awesome. Did you guys see that? Oh, thanks. Yes, I'm aware that Resharper caused some slowness. Thank you for that, Microsoft. Let's have a battle between you and JetBrains, arguing over whose fault it is when things slow down. That solves everything. Just argue about it. Yeah. Okay. And then the question is, do I want to mess with the migrations? Since these just live here, they should change nicely. Do-do-do. There we go. And that ought to fix that. Spawn Hub TV, welcome. Hope you're having a great day. So we are just moving all of our files over into a new project. We are shifting all of the EF migrations over into a Data EF project. Now here's what's going to get weird. And Wampa TV, yes, I do use migrations for production application. In fact, I think it is more important to do them for production than it is just for like local development. And keep in mind that when you're doing migrations, you can tell EF migrations to create a script for you that is the one. So if you have a setup where you've got DBAs that need to be the ones that run a migration script for you, you can tell EF Migrations to make a SQL script that they can run on the server, and then could be, say, validated against a copy of the production database to confirm that everything works, or whatever it is you need to do. So you can set it up that way. Worried by migrations protection because someone could accidentally drop a bunch of tables. Yeah, so that's the way you can protect it. Now, I understand the concern when you're talking about like migration triggered within the application. So in our, let me pull it up on screen. In our GameTracker bot project, so in this one, which is our other project that we do on stream, there is inside of the bot, so we use migrations here as well, but if you take a look at our startup setup database method, one of the things we do is we say ensure database, and we just say context database migrate. So now I would not recommend that you do this for an application that's like a production thing. We do it because the bot can, should just be updating itself. We want to make it easy. And it's not like the type of data that the bot is managing is like super mission critical. So we're not terribly worried about it. But I would recommend against doing that if you are doing anything more serious than what we do in our bot. So, because it could get a little risky. Does that make sense? Okay, so a couple of things. We actually are we're going to lose one benefit that we had from having our EF migrations inside of an ASP.NET Core project. One of the nice things that ASP.NET Core was doing for us that you didn't actually see was, hey, don't hurt me no more. Thank you, Wampa TV. Much appreciated for the subscription. Enjoy your Devcha hype emote. You can now have a T-Rex with little grabbers because he's got short arms holding up a hype sign. Yeah, so the thing that we lost out on is that these designer files used to be nested underneath the main file here. So it actually takes that away. So you'll notice that these are separate files now. When the migrations were in this project, they were nested, so they looked the same way the pages did, where you'd click this and then there's, a little sub file under it. And we lose that because the ASP.NET team, what people don't realize is when Visual Studio comes out and they release a new version, all the fancy features that ASP.NET has that the other teams don't, that the other project types don't have, they have it because the ASP.NET team is building the tooling for that into their stuff. So on some of these, like that bit, I wish that they had made that tooling change available for everyone. Because we lose it when we move it out of there. But I don't want my data inside my web project. I want to have that pulled out into a separate project. So that's my penalty for wanting things to be neat. So this is, hilariously, I changed like every file in this project, and really all I was doing was getting rid of a I am going to do a full project replacement of that using statement because it should no longer exist. So actually, I'm just going to go ahead and find all instances of that and nuke them. Because it shouldn't be in any of these. Those are the remnants of my rename. It didn't get rid of all of the old usages of that namespace, and I just want to get rid of it because I don't like having extra namespaces in there. So this commit is literally just clean up namespaces. It's move stuff and clean up namespaces. And the reason I am stepping through each one of these is I am using a keyboard shortcut, Control-RG. And what this keyboard shortcut is doing is it is actually removing unused using statements and organizing the usings for me. So it's doing a sort and a remove the unused. So now I don't want to do any other cleanup other than just messing with namespaces, and the reason for that is that I'm doing a namespace change and I like to keep my commits specific to a single thing. And yes, I am even going to change the migration files because it won't actually be a significant change on them. And I'm going to close all the documents there. And I'm going to take a look in our change. SpawnHub, which thing do you wish you knew a couple of years ago? Okay, so that is all the file moving, and then that is fixing up namespaces. Okay, so what we're going to do is move EF files and fix usings. Move EF files and fix usings. Okay, there's probably still going to need to be another commit before we're done here. Yeah, so that one might be a resharper command. I'm not 100% that it isn't. But there's also, if you don't have that one, you can do a right click and do a remove and sort usings right here. So I don't remember whose that is, whether that's Visual Studio by default or whether its context menu is altered by something, but that's the one I'm using. So, and it just does that and nuked. So it's quite nice. Ah, okay, Brutal Suede, it is in the standard. Yeah, because that feature has been in ReSharper forever. But basically the way that Visual Studio updates work is each time a new version comes out, they have whatever feature was really cool in ReSharper that they need to add so that everybody gets access to it. So I'm actually not going to commit that one separately, so we're going to keep that like that. But yeah, no, all kinds of tips and tricks. It's actually why I highly recommend that people, it's part of the reason why we're here at the stream is because you want to watch other people write code. You learn all kinds of things. So the development shops that I've worked at in the past, I have been a proponent of pair programming for, probably about 11, 12 years now. And I can tell you, pair programming is the way that you learn all kinds of things. Yeah, so Brittle Suede, lately for some reason ReSharper has been like a performance hog, and I don't know why. And SpawnHub TV, learning the shortcuts, that's actually why the pair programming is so important. Some of the developers that I have worked with in the past are the ones that learn all the keyboard shortcuts, and then if you pair with someone that knows them, they'll show you all the keyboard shortcuts, just because they're going to be using them, and then that's what's actually going to make you suddenly able to do it. So what I want to do really quick here is I want to go ahead and try our application again. We're going to go ahead and run it, make sure that we can do all the same stuff we were doing before. So I'm going to pull this over here. And we're going to go and click on games. We want to make, okay, so it did pull them. Can I edit it? Democker, we're going to put an exclamation point on the end. Looks like that worked. I'm going to remove the exclamation point. I'm going to attempt to delete it, which I can, and I'm going to put it back because I love that board game. That is actually my favorite board game, by the way. Democker is. And if you haven't played it, I recommend it only if you are up for doing a really long board game, as it'll probably take you more than 5 hours your first time playing it. Okay, so that stuff seems like it still works, so that's awesome. So we were able to migrate things, and it still functions as we expect it to. So someone in here has got to be asking now at this point, what's it going to do when we go and try to add a new migration? And we will find out when we add the next piece, which we're going to do here in a second. But I want to take a look at chat, just make sure no one said anything that I need to answer. So SpawnHub, you'd spend a weekend learning them all. So I actually recommend against that. What I always recommend to people when I introduce them to these tools like ReSharper is print out a key map. And I mean like physically print it out, because you want to put it like, basically attach it to your monitor, and then just look at one of the keyboard shortcuts and be like, that's a cool one. Okay, I'm going to start using that one. And so then as you're writing your code that day, just start using that. And if you forget the keyboard shortcut, you just look at what it is. And then like as you go through the list, just learn each one from that. And you can just take a pen or a pencil and just mark off each one that you figure out once you've got it. And that's basically how you do it. So every dev that joined our team, we would print out a copy of the keyboard shortcuts and give it to them. Now, part of the reason we did that is because we wanted the whole team to use the same set of keyboard shortcuts, because otherwise it gets weird if you pair program with someone and they use a different set of key bindings. That would throw you off. So consequently, I am responsible for a bunch of developers using the IntelliJ IDEA shortcuts in ReSharper, because I've been using ReSharper so long that they didn't have the quote Visual Studio ones at that time. Like so I'm used to those ones, which were the default in like ReSharper 2 or something like that, and earlier. I think that's what they call it. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to add our next model, and I'm going to show you what happens to migrations now that we've done this. So our next model is not going to be, so we have game, but our next thing needs to be the person that's playing it. So I think I want to call them a player, which sounds kind of funny. Now, I don't want to get into dealing with first name, last name, and that kind of thing. That's too much complexity for what we're doing. We're just trying to record a person, so I guess I could first name, last name. Alright, we're going to first name, last name. Just seems complicated, but I'm going to do it anyway. We're going to do first name, last name. Do we want to add anything else to this? Now, neither game entries nor players feel like they need to have like dates or anything like that. We're not going to be doing editing, logging, certainly not in the short term. Where we like track any of that stuff. So first name, last name might be enough for the player right now. Not sure. We'll go ahead and put that in there. This is going to be a base entity. So by adding base entity, we get our GUID, you'll remember. And then the next thing that I want to do is I want to jump over to our DB context and add a DB set for it. So we're going to go ahead and say player, and then the table is going to be called players. Project Orleans. I'm going to go look up what Project Orleans is because you've mentioned it. I don't actually know what that one is, or if I do, I don't remember it. Project Orleans, a straightforward approach to building distributed high-scale applications in .NET. This sounds awesome. I am going to read this. I am not going to read this right now, but I am going to look this up. Because Janiscu, it sounds really cool. Okay, so now we have that, and we have a separate table of these. And so I want to show you what's going to happen with the migration now when we attempt to use this. So, previously, when I came down here and I just did an add migration, and I said, so it said create game model. Now I'm going to say create player model, but this is not going to work. See, this is me warning you before I click the button. I really know that this isn't going to work. This isn't one of those like, oh, I goofed. Yeah, I meant to do that. No, I'm really meaning to do this. Because I'm pretty darn sure it won't find it. So there you go. So the problem is that I'm pointed at the wrong project. Now, I left this open because I told you that we were going to want this because we need to look up one thing. So we're going to look up, whoops, using a separate project right here. So you may want to store your migrations in a different assembly than the ones containing your DB context. Now, interestingly, it is the one containing my DB context, and that description is just crappy. But in order to make that work, I just need to pass in this. So dash project and then my project. So I want to say dash project, and then I want to say devchatter.gametracker.data.ef. And now it should work. And it looks like it did. So you'll see that it created it right here. It's these two files, and then it should have also modified the snapshot. So we added a table, ID, first name, last name, nullable strings. I don't know why they're nullable, but they are. and oh, because I didn't mark it as required or something like that. Add a primary key on players, and it's down as dropping it. And I don't know why it included that, but thank you. Okay, so that looks like it worked. Okay. So now I need to actually do this migrate. So update database. We're going to actually have it create those tables. So we're going to do this instead of going to the page and triggering it like I did last time. Ojabin. I'm hoping one of those two is correct, but I apologize for if I butchered your name. But welcome, thank you for following. So that should have done our migrate on our table that applied the migration to our local DB. So now when I run this, everything should be fine. We're not doing anything extra just yet, so I just want to make sure that we're not getting any errors. And then I want to scaffold up this new thing. And thank you for the hypes there, Wampa TV. Rawr! Welcome. Welcome, welcome. And yes, the bot that we're using, we developed that on stream. For anybody that's new and hasn't heard me say that already. What I am going to do now is I'm going to add, so we have this folder full of game stuff, and that does create, delete, details, edit, and index. We're going to do the same trick for players. And you might be wondering, Brendan, why are you setting it up like this? Aren't we going to set it up so that we use view or something like that? And yes, I say to that, we will be setting up one of those eventually. But for now, we can set up these base pages that just use this and work nicely. So we're going to set up CRUD pages for this, and then once I get this going, we are going to actually remove the DB context from this project. Because I don't want my web project, I don't want these backend pages to have knowledge of the DB context. I don't want them using it directly. I want to kind of hide that away from them. So, let me go ahead and remove unused usings here real quickly. RG, so we're going to do some quick remove and sorts here. RG. And if anyone is wondering about the coloring on my tabs, I'm using some power tools in Visual Studio that make my tabbing a little bit nicer. Tabs are color-coded based on the project that it's in, and they're always grouped based on the project. So things that come out of each project are grouped together, and it's weird at first, but you get used to it. So actually, let me commit these separately. Well, no. Adding players scaffolding and data. Let me make sure it works first. Is which thing part of ReSharper Brutal Suede? Oh, no. That's actually a separate extension. Yes, sorry, the tabs. I will show it to you in a second. Let me go ahead and add this link that I'm going to do here, and I will show you which thing it is. Yeah, I realized, and there's a little bit of stream delay, so you didn't hear me realizing until after I'd said that. And so we're going to have those. So I'm adding in some new pages just for those, and then we're going to go ahead and reload this again. Yeah, so these tabs will confuse you at first because you're not used to it, but once you get used to them, they're a little bit nicer to use. Okay, so there's players, there's games, and I'm going to create me. There I am. Woo! Details, edit, yeah, Brendonius. Yep, okay, cool. So that works. I can delete me. Yep, and create me again. Okay. There we go, that works. So just wanted to confirm before I committed this that it indeed worked. So commit that, and I will show you now what changes my tabs, and I'll actually show them working for you so you can see how it works. Wampa TV. So hi, hello Nightbeat, welcome. Wampa TV, I will answer your question in 1 second. Let me get to the question that was asked right before it. And I will get to that by showing you this. Okay, so let's open these three classes, the base entity, the game, and the player. You'll notice all these came in, they are yellow tabs. The one I've got right now, you'll notice is a slightly different color, and it has bold text on it, and you can tell that that one is there. And if I make changes in it, you'll see that red icon appears there to indicate that I've got changes. If I open files from another project, say this one, say I open up my repository, you'll notice that these ones come in green, because that's what project these came from. And then if I open up something out of this other project, they come in red. So you'll notice it does organization, and you'll notice the top project here. So top one on my list is all the way to the left, and then core is in the middle, and then data is on the right. So they are organized all based on the structure inside of Solution Explorer and color-coded. So that's actually how they're set up, and if I modify files, you'll see it does that little red icon. So you can spot it there, just so nobody misses it. It's right here, right next to startup there. Kind of hard to see, but that's what's changing. And I will show you what actually makes that work. That is actually from the Productivity Power Tools, if I remember correctly. It does this. And then inside of this, I think it's the one that does it. One of these does it. Alright, here's what we're going to do. Tabs. Here we go. Place tabs on this top. That's it. Custom document well. That's the one I was looking for. Name's not great, but it's there. So I can actually mess with all these. So here it is. So custom document well. So I can move the tabs to be in another place, but top is where everybody's going to be expecting it, but you could have them on the left if you wanted. So it would look like this if I did that. So you can change the structure, which I could totally see someone liking that structure. I just don't do that one because I think that'll weird people out when I'm on the stream too much, just because it is so different. But I can do other things like, if you don't like the color set, you can change what the default colors are that it uses here by project. So you can adjust them like that. And I believe you can even get very advanced in how they work. So you'll notice that they've got some variant for like different file types and things like that. The dirty indicator I was showing you was that large red dot that you could change what you want for those. So there's a lot of customization. And the place where this came from, for anybody that does want to install this is part of the Productivity Power Tools. And Productivity Power Tools is actually just a container that contains a number of extensions. So Custom Document Well is the one it brings in. So the Productivity Power Tools gets you a lot of different extensions, because it's basically just, it depends on other extensions, so you can bring them all in at once. But the Custom Document Well is the one that does all the configuration for the tabs. And I guess they call it a document well? I don't know why they don't just say file tabs or something. So, yeah, that's what that is. Welcome, Ahmed Volcano 21. I like the name. That's good. So welcome. Thank you for following. Brutal Suede. Welcome, Soy Abdo. Hello. Greetings. Thank you for the follow. Brutal Suede, to answer your question, you can get this in the Community Edition. This is just an extension. So this is not like an only limited to Enterprise or Professional feature here. So, okay, so we've got that. So I set up this piece, we've got all that going, and what we need to do now is, I have been alluding to the fact that we want to pull this feature out of here and get it somewhere else. So we do not want to have our data context in that location that we have it right now, so we're going to move it over here. And what I'm going to do is I am going to make it so that our project references the right thing. So what I'm going to do is I am going to so before I had started, I set up this constructor, and I tried to say app_db_context, but it didn't work last time because of the fact that we didn't have our app data context pulled out of the web project yet. So now that it is, we can access it here. Okay, so now that I have EF out here, I can now hide EF inside of this repository. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say db.set. So you'll remember that I set up db sets inside of our db context. You'll see it here. Those are db sets that we've got. And inside the db set, I just need to pass in the type. I should specify it was a typed db set. So see a db set of type game. So I can access that by type. And then once I've got this, I can say single or default. And yes, I am going to use single or default despite the fact that my name was single. Don't worry about that. And then what I want to say is spec.criteria. Whoops. Spec.criteria. So you'll remember that we mentioned there was a confusing piece that was kind of weird that was our expression of function of t of bool that we had in here. Soy Abdo. It is usually C# using .NET Core is what we're actually doing, but we're doing ASP.NET Core today. So most of the programming languages that we're going to use in here are C# and some JavaScript because we're going to do JavaScript for the front ends. We're probably going to use Vue.js. That's the current plan to sort of nice up our front end, and by that I mean we're going to have our main entry pages for interacting with the user for this application we're building. Our plan is to do it in Vue.js. So all the fancy bits are going to be bound using its app model, and it should work nicely. We'll see. And yes, Wampa TV, it will be a very generic repository. And additionally, when we add in things like caching, I'm going to do some things that I hope blow everyone's mind and make caching nice and seamless and completely ignored. So the goal is that you don't even notice it. Soy Abdo, the application we're building here is actually a program for tracking games. So if you and your friends play a game, you might want to record who played in it, who won, who lost, that sort of thing. And so that's actually what we're building right now. And normally on stream, the program that we spend most of our time working on is the bot that you can talk to in chat. And so you'll notice that so over there on the left, for anybody that's watching this just in a video, you can see the chat over there. The bot just responded with the commands that are available that I am allowed to run. And what's neat about that is that when you ask this bot for its commands, it's actually doing that based on its own memory. So it's looking to see what commands do I have available, and it puts out what command word you use to call it. So that is like a real list that I have permission to run. So if you run the commands command, you will get a different set of data there. So that's what's kind of neat about that. Anyway, so this is our DB set here. I'm actually going to, since this one gets a little bit more complicated, I'm going to pull that into a variable. And then what I'm going to say is return spec. So if you pass in a null spec, I think I want this to return with an all. Maybe. Oh, that's a good question. Do I want to let you get away with that? I was just thinking for this one that someone might try to call this and just pass in null as their specification. But I think we're going to restrict that and require that you pass in the correct one anyway. So, we'll see. For now, I'm going to restrict it. So we're going to say where spec.criteria. So the same kind of thing we did in the previous one. But since we let you do the criteria already, hopefully you filtered it down so we don't have a problem there. And I'm going to go ahead and to-list it. Okay, yeah, see, it wants to handle the case where that's null, because I guess you can have a null inside of this, but not inside of that one. Alright, that's fine. We'll do this. So if you pass in a null, I'm going to let you get away with it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say spec does not equal null. Then do that. Otherwise, we're going to have dbset.toList. So basically, if you didn't pass in a specification, I'm going to give you the full set. If you did pass in the specification, then we're going to apply it inside our where and then give you back the collection. So that's how we're going to do the call to the database there. So it should be pretty nice. Anybody say anything interesting in chat? Okay, so Wampa TV, yeah, we're going to be shrinking down the... So the commands command returns back a whole bunch. There are points actually in our issues. Oops, I meant to bring up this. If you actually do take a look, you'll notice that there are a bunch of issues that we have in here, and you'll notice that community members have been adding them in here. Those are not all, most of those are not me, actually, which I love that we get this attention from our community. And then we also take in pull requests, so if there are things like that that you'd be interested in seeing in improvements to the bot, go ahead and toss them out there. And for anybody that is interested, all the code that we work on in chat is all out on everything we work on in this stream is out on GitHub, so you can take a look at it out there. Yeah, that's the thing there. I'm gonna guess Dule, but could just your question. So first off, hi, welcome. Hopefully you're enjoying the stream. Your question of how does one get to work for Microsoft? The short answer is you apply. I intentionally don't work for Microsoft, which means I didn't apply at Microsoft, but not to say that people that have my background don't often end up working at Microsoft, because it's pretty darn common. I am a former Microsoft MVP. I have done a lot of stuff with Microsoft in the past, and they have recognized me for the things that I have done for the community. I am not currently an MVP, and that is because I pretty much stopped doing much for the community for a little while, but I have started back up again, so who knows, maybe they will again. But it's pretty common for people that were MVPs to make the switch and become actual employees of Microsoft. But then that's not something that I've intended to do, so... But pretty much the short answer is you apply for a position and you get in it. I do know a number of teams are hiring right now. I know that they're looking for a senior program manager at Microsoft to work with, I think, ASP.NET and a couple of other projects right now. Is this return back an object? Entity entry dot entity. Does that actually return? Is that the object? It's called. Let me see if I answered your question. So, yeah, Janiscu, C# Fritz was an MVP, and he ended up joining the .NET team. So, yes, let's all wear hats. No, Wampa TV, we don't actually have to wear hats, but C# Fritz wears a lot of hats. That's why we make that joke about him. Yeah, actually, he and I used to work for the same company. Before he went to Microsoft, we both worked at Telerik, or they're now part of Progress Software. And yeah, I think I can just return data item, which is what I was originally doing. I can Control Z back to it. I just can't remember if it modified that object or not, is what I don't recall. Okay, so then on this one, all we want to do here is just do a db.set type t, and then do a remove, pass in the data item, and then db.save changes. And yeah, I know it's not the nicest code in the world, but it should work for what we want to do here, and wraps that up reasonably nicely. So, okay. So wire up the EF core repository. So I'm going to go ahead and commit that for now, and then we're going to go ahead and make the rest of this work. So we want this to actually get used now. And the way that we're going to do that is this. We're going to jump over to these pages. Which one to start with? Let's go with the index page, because that one should be an easy one. Index, context, application DB context. We don't want this. We want to have an iRepository. And we're going to rename it to repo. Why are you searching everywhere for that? Wow, that was a lot of work for nothing there, thing. Okay. So I want to list, and what I want to list is I want to do a, what did I call it? Base entity policy on these are games. All. Excuse me. Mine is not async. So, we're just going to do that. On get. It's not a task, it's just a void. Duh. There we go. Okay. Now I think that'll work. I have not wired up our dependency injection. What do you think about giving your list function additional parameters, page size, and implement that in EF with a way that you can so you don't load everything? Wampa TV, you are 100% correct. We are going to want to add page size and page numbers and things like that into that. And we're actually probably going to put that into the policy stuff. Let me go ahead and I'm going to stop the site and restart it because it's not wanting to copy the files over right now. So we're going to go ahead and do that to make it work right. And now I'm going to drink the wrong beverage on stream. This is a Coke Zero. Anyone that hasn't seen Coke Zero before? But I wish it were a Pepsi, in case you couldn't tell. But that's just me. I like Pepsi better than Coke, but, you know, let's not start a war over it. Okay, so which one did I change again? I changed games. So if I go to games, boom! So I think I mentioned that we hadn't wired up. So here's what happens. So it doesn't know what to do with this repository. It doesn't know to give me an EF core repository when I ask it for an iRepository. So that's why we ran into that. So what we're going to do, we're going to jump over here. And so that added that one. And then if I remember correctly, I haven't actually futzed with this in this way in a long time. Because I don't wire it up this way. Adds an... I don't remember how you wire this one up. What is it, a type of that? Was this not generic? Ah, there we go. Adds... Ooh, do I want scoped or singleton? That's what it is. That's what it is. Yes, scopered. And then I want EF core repository, if I remember correctly. And then I don't want to do anything weird with it, but I think that's just what it is. Yeah, I haven't actually futzed with that in a while, so I set up a completely different structure when I actually do this elsewhere. I actually wrap and hide this away. So despite the fact that they made dependency injection a first-class citizen in ASP.NET, most of the time in my projects, I squirrel it away somewhere else and I hide it inside of a module project. So, yeah, transient or scoped, I think either one would work here. Just depends on the lifetime we want. I think this is fine for now, and we can fix it up better if we need it a different way. And Lithium X4900, we are doing an application that is going to be used to track games that you play. So if you play a board game or a card game with your friends, you want to record who played in it, who won, who lost, who taught, that sort of thing. That's what the application is going to do. We're doing it in ASP.NET Core, and it is hopefully going to be a pretty fun application. Part of the point is supposed to be limited in scope so that you can look at it, you can see it, you can understand how it's working. Should be quite fun. So I'm going to go ahead and build, and then I'm going to reload that page where we were getting our error because we hadn't wired that up yet. And since we built that, it should restart the app, which it did, and there's our game list coming out of the new place. So just to confirm, let's go back and we can change the rest of these. Wamba TV, I'm glad you like it. What I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and toss this repo into each of the other models. We're in the games one, so I'm going to open up games. So that was that one. We're going to open up this one's model. Change from context to a repo. And I'm actually just going to open up all of these real quickly. And we're just going to change all 5 of them at once. So change that one, change that one, change that one. So what I'm doing right now is I am making sure that we don't have the EF core dependencies in here anymore. And I'm going to steal the code out of this one. And we're going to do it like this. So I'm going to copy that in there. Copy that in there. And now it's complaining about the dependencies. I'm going to come back and get those in a second. So it just needs to get this referenced. Reference that. Add the using, please. Add the using. So we're just going to open up each one of these, make sure we have the using in each one. I'm going to go ahead and build this. It's not going to run yet. That's fine, because it's still looking for context down here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to update those so that they reference the correct thing now. And what we're going to do is... so this one is a singular default on that. Again, I'm going to change this so we're not doing the async one. Because that's not what we're building here. That's not to say that we can't make an async one, but that's not the one that we built right now, so that's why we're changing off of it. So we're going to have repo, and then instead of passing in games here, we're going to say single, and we're going to do it by ID. So what we're going to pass here is we're going to say base entity specification, base entity policy, and we're going to say by ID, and then the ID we're going to pass in is ID. Oh, it was an optional ID? Why is it an optional ID? Oh, right. We already... ID equals null, not found. Okay. That's weird. That's fine though, guys. That's fine. If that's the way that they want to do it. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is change this. We're not going to attach and mess with state and things like that. We're just going to go ahead and edit it. We might have to do that inside on the context, but we're not going to do that out here. So I am going to go ahead and get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, and on post this thing. If ID equals probably, I don't know why it defaulted to that. You're right, Wampa TV. That probably is a bad request, not found. But it's kind of the same thing-ish. And redirect, that'll be a throw, so rethrowing that, and we're gonna do this is an update actually of the item. So we're gonna do an update on the game object. And I think if we do need that in somewhere, it would be in here. So I'm just going to make a note here and be like, do we need this? So for now I'm going to toss it in there. I don't think we will, but why not keep track of it? And then the last thing that I want to do is repo, and then it wants to see if it exists. Why is it... Oh, make sure... Okay. Alright, yeah, we can check for that. And we're going to say base entity policy. Actually, it was a base entity policy of type game. And we're going to say by ID, and we're going to say ID. And we're going to say does not equal null. So that means we had one. Okay, next spot we're going to change is this one. So we're going to say repo, and then we're going to say add. Except we called add create. And then I think as part of our create we do a save, so we don't need to await a save changes on that, and then we'll do a redirect back. We're not going to async this again, as you guys are probably noticing. We didn't do an async, and so we are going to drop all the async stuff off of these. Again, we didn't do an async one, so we're not doing async still. And just like in the last one, which actually this makes me want to reuse some of this, because this looks... delete looks so similar. So this is going to be... we want to get a single one, and this is going to be base entity policy of type game, and we're going to say by ID, ID.value, and then we don't need to await it. That's going to get us our value. So that's the one we're going to load in. So we view it on the page, so that's how it loads. And then when we actually go to get it, we're going to grab it by ID, and then we're going to say repo remove game. And we don't need to do any of this extra special stuff because our remove does the save changes as part of it. We're not async, so we're going to get rid of that stuff. And so now we have on post, on get, and those look good. Now for our last DB context here, again, we're not async, so repo. Actually, we can just do that. So this is details, we're going to get by ID, so there we go. And if we wanted to get different, so you'll notice that I did this base entity policy of type game. If I want to, I don't actually have to do this one. I can change it and stop using the base one, and I will show you that once we get this working. So I want to confirm that game still works. I'm going to test out all the features, and then if it works, we're going to go ahead and do a commit. I think it's going to work. Let's take a look, though. Anybody got a favorite board game they want me to add to this collection? So we can load up the list. I am going to add a new board game, and we're going to call it Settlers of Catan, which I'm going to spell wrong because I can't remember if there's a double letter in there or not. Monopoly, there you go. Monopoly. There we go. Okay, so it looks like they get created. I can load up Monopoly. I can change it to Solar Quest, which is what you actually meant to say, because you like Solar Quest way better. But I am going to delete Solar Quest, and it's gone. I'm also going to delete Settlers of Catan, and it's gone. And I can add a new game called Kalis, for example. And Munchkin, there you go, there's another one. So, Munchkin. So, looks like all of our stuff works for the most part, so I would call that good enough to commit. So this is changing games pages. So changing games pages to use repository. Okay, so I like the way that worked. We're going to want to do the same thing for players, but... oh, Mansion of Madness. That's a good one, Brutal Suede. If anyone hasn't played it, Mountain of Madness. Absolutely Mountain of Madness. If you haven't played it, that game is really fun. It is a hoot. It is wild. It is crazy. That is a really fun game. In the game, you're trying to escape from this mountain, but all the players, you secretly have a card that tells you what your madness is, and everyone has to ignore the fact, like, basically you pretend like your madness doesn't exist, like you're totally normal, there's nothing wrong with you, you're not crazy, everyone else is crazy, and you don't acknowledge the fact that you have it, and you do something crazy, like one player might only be able to whisper, and everybody else has to figure out that they're only whispering. It makes it hard to coordinate. So yeah, if anybody's interested, that's a fun game. Okay, so I could modify that one, but I think what I want to do is this. So I showed you guys the specifications that we're using, and that probably still seems a little bit magical to some people. If it does, that's fine. But what I want to do is make a new one of these that is going to be... So I'm going to create a derive type, but this one is going to be the game policy. And I'm going to make it public as well. And what I'm going to do with this one is it's just going to have one of these. So it is going to be of that type, and it's going to work like this. So we had by ID, and it's still going to have these because it's going to inherit those from the parent one. But what I can get away with now is I could do by title as well, for example. And actually, this is going to return back a game policy. So game policy by ID. So string title. And I could say game policy, and I could say x.title equals, and I could say title, and I could say ignore casing. And so, whoops, I meant to say by title. So now, what I could do is I could actually change those spots that we used previously. And I'm actually going to get rid of that. I don't think we need it. Let's hop back over into the games. And if I open one of these up, you'll see that I use this policy of games, but I could actually just say game policy now, dot all. And I could go over here and I could say game policy by ID. So I can essentially get rid of this and replace it with that one. Oops. So that lets us nice things up a little bit and do things that are more convenient methods than anything else. So they make it just a little nicer to work with. So the idea is that I don't have to be scattering around. So if I were using my data context, for example, I would have a lot of lambda expressions scattered around to be doing these little filters, and this sort of hides that away. Will work just as well with controllers and views. Exactly, Brutal Suede. This works just as well with controllers and views. So if you're using MVC, all of this stuff that we're doing here works just the same way. That's what's so nice about this, is it all just works. And that makes it super nice, because I can just do that, and then I'm just like, yay, party. I don't have any of this stuff in here anymore. That one didn't pull anything, so it didn't actually have a policy. Okay. So jumping back over here, the other cool thing that I want you to notice, so my specifications, these things that do this filtering, you'll notice it lives here in my core project, not in my data project. So what's neat about that is, that means that I can apply these same filters whether the data that I got came from a caching layer or whether it came from the database. So, for example, if what I ended up doing was saying that the whole game library, that whole list of games or the whole list of players gets loaded into memory when it's initially called in the repository, and we keep that stored in the cache, when we actually go to access that, we can pull a filtered copy out. So what that means is that we don't need to keep we can if we want to, but we don't need to keep a copy of the filtered version of the data set. So we could access memory and then apply a filter to the cached data. Alternately, we could store the cached version. And if we did that, what we would do most likely is add a property on here that was a string cache key, some kind of something or other, right? We might do that, or we might walk this expression tree and create a cache key based on it. So this might end up being like a cache key prefix, for example, or something like that. There are a few ways we can do it, but I figured I'd mention why that is as cool as it is. Add game policy specification. So if anybody wants that, so the game policy, so this is used for filtering games based on specified criteria. Okay, let's see. Wampa TV asks, would e-tagging be cool to show? I'm actually not sure what you're talking about, Wampa TV. Can you clarify? Maybe I'm just having a brain fart right now. Used for filtering Space entity objects based on specified criteria. Okay, so there we go. So that's what the types are. I think all self-explanatory, so is by ID. Which actually, now that I've done that, I'm going to make that protected. And this abstract for now. Okay, Captain Honeydew is back. Seems you're still building the repository. We are mostly done with the repository, actually. Oh, right, we don't want that to be abstract, because then I can't build it there. E-tag, HSV E-tag. I don't actually know that one. What is this? Why is my brain not working? If I do, then I don't know it by name. You're talking about this. Ah, you're talking about web caching. Got it. Okay. Yeah, no. I'm talking about something entirely different. Yeah, I'm talking about a different layer of caching. Yeah, different layer of caching. Sorry, I was not making that connection. I was thinking server side, and my brain was like, huh, what now? Yes, we will have to look at doing something around that at some point probably, but this is I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about making it so we don't have database hits we don't need to have. Okay, so let's toss in our next piece here. I have not actually gotten rid of DB context off of players yet, although it's going to be the exact same thing we did with games. Let's add in our third piece, which is going to be the one that we're going to get more complicated with. So, gameplays, games played, games played, game log, game record, game record. Game record? Game record makes sense to me. Yeah, just trying to come up with names for stuff. Game record. Feel free to shout out names for stuff if I'm trying to come up with a name. Naming things is still the hardest part of development. So this is going to have a game. Game. Whoops. Prop. List of player. Do we actually want to have a list of player? No. We're gonna get a little more complicated here, actually, because I'm gonna add in a couple of things at once. Let's add another type too. So we're gonna add a public class. So there's a game record and a play record, I think is what I want to do. So we're going to make both of those a base entity, and I am going to make this have a list of play records. So that is going to be play records. So there's the game that was played, there's the play records, and a play record is going to have a player, a property for a Boolean property for 1, and a Boolean property for taught for now. Does this seem crazy to you guys? Sit D. Welcome, thank you for following. Okay, so I think that's the structure that I want to go with here. Does that seem crazy to anybody else? I think that'll work. we're going to have to get a little more complicated in our classes as we start to build this. Specifically, our specifications, we're probably going to need to allow for the concept of including additional data. When we specify that we want a game record, that we're going to want to pull the play records as well. Because I think EF is going to automatically get me my game. I think. We'll see. But I don't know about the next step down. Janisku, you are correct. It is kind of weird streaming before C# Fritz, because he's not going to be streaming for another 6.5 hours. Whereas normally, his is the early one and mine's the late one. As if from at least where Fritz and I are, if this would be late. Actually, which way is it to Fritz from here? Fritz is like a 6-hour drive that way. From where I am. So if I drove for like 6 hours that way, I could get to Fritz's house. And yes, driving. Well, welcome to Murica. That's the only way we can get around. I guess I could technically probably take a bus or take a train, but I mean I could fly there too, obviously. I've flown to the airport that he's in. Okay, so I'm going to move that to its own thing. You know, I don't know if we'll ever play video games together, but we have pair programmed. I was a guest on his stream a long time ago. Probably back in February. And at Janisku, I actually want to get a new keyboard. There's a keyboard I used to use that I don't use anymore. The Microsoft Sculpt is a fantastic keyboard. What would it, Fortnite or Rocket League? What? Why would I want to play those, man? We could play Overwatch. Fritz and I both play Overwatch. We actually root for the same Overwatch pro team. We root for Fusion. Although I also root for Houston. Yeah, see? Overwatch. There you go. See, glad you approve on that one. Okay, so now I want to add a migration for this. Am I committed? Okay, so this is adding the... You know what? I'm going to commit those two first. Leave this out, and leave that out. Policy cleanup. I call it that, which is not the best name, but not the worst either. So game record, play record. So this is modeling the the play records. I just use a crappy one right now, Brutal Suede. That's all I've got right here. It's just a standard, you know, regular keyboard. There's nothing special about it. It was free, I think. And I have like piles and piles of keyboards. I like ones that are actually, you know, separate pieces. If you've never seen the Microsoft Sculpt, I will show you the one that is actually my favorite keyboard. This is the one that I want to be using again, and I should just go and get another one. This thing, it is glorious and wonderful. I love this keyboard. When this came out, and I was at Microsoft for the MVP Summit one time, and they let us go in the Microsoft store, and I just walked up to this thing and I put my hand on it, and I'm like, that is my new keyboard. I need one of these right now. It is a fantastic keyboard. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We need to add another migration, so I am actually just going to click update up a couple of times because it'll give me all this code. And then this is, we are going to create game record models. Add migration, create game record models. Oh, nope, it's not going to do anything. Yep, see, did nothing. Look at that. Look at that. Franklin, yeah, it is a super nice keyboard. I am a big fan of it. So, I love how it did nothing, because it didn't really need to do a migration, because what I didn't do was this. I didn't actually put it in here. So db set of type, what did I call it, game record? So now what I'm wondering about is I've got these in here. I'm going to try telling it that when it gets this to include those. Now, I could be just going wonky here. Let's see what it does when I do this migration now. So I'm just going to run it again. We're going to take a look at what it does. And what's nice is if you're running source control like this, you can pretty much just undo that. An attempt was made to use the model while it was being created. A context instance cannot be used on... Oh! You frigga. Yeah, well, apparently it didn't work, so... Let's see what it does with it. Alright, so it created a table for game records and a table for play records. That's what I wanted. And it gets rid of them when it goes that way. Okay. So that's basically what I was looking for. Some new people. Hey, everybody. Welcome, Sophia Remy and Silence Official. Welcome, welcome. Hi. Welcome to the chat. Hope everybody's doing well. Don't they have lazy loading so you don't need to do the include when you update hams? Yeah, Wampa TV, I don't think I need to. But I'm probably going to put it as an include in our specification. We'll see. But yes, thank you for that. So welcome, everybody. Hopefully you are all having a good day. So that is working. Let's go ahead and... So that created that. So okay, so adding migration for... What is this? Game records and play records. There's a record of the game being played and a record of the player playing. Okay, let's put that in there. yeah, preview. And that's very cool, Sophia. Congratulations. Programming is quite fun. I really hope that you like it. There's a reason that we all do programming here. There's just the joy of you run your code and something actually happens. You get to create something. It's really cool. Okay, so I am going to set this up. But yes, we are actually... This is a new project, Sophia, so we're not doing anything all that crazy yet. So even if you are new to programming, I think you still might enjoy some of this. Oh, I already made a game records thing. Let's get rid of that one. Game records. And I am going to add in Razor Pages. I'm going to let it scaffold again the same way it did before because I want to see what it does with this. I just want to see how smart it is. What did the program do in your JavaScript function, Sophia? Brutal Swede. Yes, Brutal Swede. We are all apparently just masochists. That's why we program. We love compiler errors and other things like that. Okay. Oh, I did not add my page here. So I'm going to add a new one of these. We're going to call it Game Record. And Game Records. Okay. Let's go ahead and refresh this. Okay, so well, we are always happy to have more programmers in the world. Programmers are awesome. So, oh man, look at these game records. These are great. Look at all those fields. Hang on, I got like 6 of these things. Wait, I want to delete this one, and this one, and this one. It didn't scaffold this very well, did it, guys? No, ladies and gentlemen, that is a failure. Sophia, you probably will. See, you know how, I don't know if that'll let you or not. You can whisper it to me, Sophia, if you want. But I need to wire that together, so that did not work right. It did not scaffold those the way that I actually wanted it to. So let's just get rid of these. And actually, for now, we're going to start from scratch on these. There's a paste bin. And pull it over here. Amount of otters. I like it. Otter hugs. Console log, math, floor. Alright. Have hugged other. Oh, that's how many otters have hugged other otters. Got it. That's pretty good. And otter hugs. That is fun. And it increments the value as the otters hug each other. Yep, that was a good one. I like it. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. Hope you don't mind, I'm moving on here. We are going to make a new folder. I'm going to call this View Models, because I think this one is going to be a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to make a view model, and we're going to call this a game record view model for now. How many otters have hugged the otters that hugged other otters? Well done, everybody. Well done. Okay, so here's what we're going to have. In our view model, we want to have a couple of things. And yes, this view model is going to be part of our page model, but I like separating them out. So actually, we're going to do this. Prop GUID. I am going to say game ID. Prop GUID player ID. We're going to have a list of these, actually. Player IDs, I think. Actually, a game record view model, and are we going to have a play record view model as well? No, we're going to keep it easy for now. I'm going to have this send us a GUID, and this is going to be winner IDs. We're going to say GUID teacher IDs for now. Recursive otter hugs. Yeah, be careful about letting them get recursive. Moo! How's it going? What does the cow think? Welcome, everybody. I think that view model will work for what we need it to do. So I'm going to go ahead and open up our pages here, and I'm going to add in a new Razor page. We're not going to have this one be an EF wire up one. This page is going to be the index page in here for now, because I don't have a better name for this one. And we're going to generate a page model class for it. Moo moo, moo moo moo, moo moo moo. Hello, welcome back. Welcome, everybody. Seeing all kinds of familiar faces in here. It is always nice to see everybody coming back. Welcome, welcome. Glad you all are enjoying. Arid tag, yes. Haha, that's exactly what I was doing. You heard me do my impression of the cows from Diablo 2, probably. If you're referencing that, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Alright, you guys are going to laugh for a second, and I apologize if this is loud. I hope it isn't. But, look, I have it on my computer like I could play Diablo like right now. We're not going to play Diablo, though. This is a programming stream. Sorry, guys. Hello, our dependency injection is pretty easy on this right now. This is going to be the game record view model. And we're going to call this the game record. Yeah, we're going to switch from programming to Diablo 2. That won't be a context change at all. Okay, so I want to have this be the bound record that we're going to use here. So I forget what it is I need to tell this thing. Bind property, that's what it is. I couldn't remember what that thing was supposed to be called. Yeah, Brutal Sweet, it's actually quite impressive that they really are actually updating Diablo 2. Many of us in the... And yes, I do consider myself still to be part of the Diablo 2 community. Many of us are hoping that Blizzard is going to do a remaster of the game like they did for StarCraft. Okay, so we're going to take game record. We're going to have to make sure that we can use it on the front end there. So we're going to be doing some model for and some label for and other stuff, but I kind of want to just steal that from one of these. So I want to grab one of the creates and just kind of... Oh, I forgot they used validation summaries by default. Those are crappy. Where's player? Player's nicer. There we go. Yank. What's going on? I'm shocked they're still patching it. It was released in, what, 02? No, it's actually older than that. What does the cow think? I believe that game is actually from the 90s, maybe 1999. Brutal Swede. I am not actually a fan of Path of Exile. It's a similar style of game, so I like what they did there, but I would like to see it a little different. So for now, hang on. I'll put these in here. Those are validation summaries for those things. We don't really have a back to list. That's not a concept here. There isn't a list right now. Validation summary model only equals 1. Okay, so we're not doing first name. We're doing a game ID. Game ID, which for now this is going to be ugly because we're literally going to have a text for selecting a game, but we want to go a different route. And then for this one, we want player IDs and player IDs and player IDs. Just for now, just so we don't have compiler errors. And then our next category is going to be teachers and winners. So this is actually where we're already at the point where we need to be having where we want to start wiring in Vue.js. So what I am going to do, I am going to go grab the Vue.js. I thought I had it pulled up. I had their documentation pulled up. There it is. Okay, so Vue.js. We want to just put this in here. So as I mentioned, I am not an expert in Vue.js, but I want to try it out and learn it. And the best way that I know of to try out and learn something is just go and do it. So, step 1, toss it on the page and see what happens. Let's see. For now, let's get rid of those. So we're literally going to have a text box that I'm supposed to type a GUID into, which is really crappy, but don't worry about it. That's not really how this is going to work. It's just, you know, run things. That's what you do when you're programming. You just click things.